let's get wacky with it. Yeah, caution to the wind. Let's predict the ending of Wave 4. We got maybe 20 seconds of a teaser trailer concerning Wave 4, so let's predict how it will end. I'm sure nothing can be wrong in this video. Absolutely. But I'm not calling that. I'm calling game. So let's just get right on into it. So I imagine the vast majority of Wave 4 for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will be a prequel relating to the founders. I imagine that's what the vast majority of the DLC will cover. However, I do agree that there will be sequel elements to the story as well, mainly with the final cutscene. I think the game will end off with showing us Mio back in Ulrest, hearing the Kavesi off-scene tune, and walking off into a crowd like Noah did, mirroring the ending of Xenoblade 3. I think that will happen, and she'll disappear just like Noah did, or we see Noah somehow be transported into Ulrest, Noah and Mio meet back up, fade to black. I think that's probably what the ending's going to be if I had to take a guess, at least the final cutscene. However, a bit ballsy. I'm feeling a little bit ballsy today, people, because that's not the only part of Wave 4 that I'm going to predict today. Au contraire, mon ami. Au contraire. Like I said, let's get wacky with it. And you know, as I'm saying this, I'm not sure exactly how gutsy of a prediction this will end up being, mainly because the monument in the Founders Room kind of just says this next bit. But the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think that the game will probably have N as the final fight. And that the game will cap off with Vandam defeating N, and then deciding for some reason to go on a lonely expedition. It would kind of mirror the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, where Adam puts Pyra to rest beneath the Cloud Sea, and just walks off, never to be seen again. I think Vandam's fight with N is almost certainly the ending of Wave 4, at least the ultimate boss fight. They could do another follow-up section showcasing when Vandam ends up going on his expedition. They could do that. And they could even do something like a 1v1 between Vandam and maybe Zed or something, somewhere, which ends up with Vandam dying, but possibly accomplishing something that allows the events of the base game to take place. The timeline on this one's a little bit iffy, but maybe splitting Noah and Mio off from N and M, allowing the events of the base game to take place. And then the ending of the prequel section would probably flash forward to either Noah or Mio going off to the start of Xenoblade 3. So if it was Noah, it would probably be them preparing to go out to that very first fight, that very first battle of Xenoblade 3, the one that it starts off with. Or if it's with Mio, it'll be showcasing her getting the orders to move out to what would end up becoming Guernica Vandam and the Ouroboros Stone. Then probably a fast forward to after the events of Xenoblade 3, then showing Mio back at home in her world, right when Mobius froze everything. I think that's probably what's going to happen with the ending. And if I had to make a prediction with the information we have at our disposal right now, that's what I would say would happen. It also makes sense in my mind just because I think it's pretty poetic, ending the DLC in a way similar to how Xenoblade 3 ended, but this time through Mio's perspective instead of Noah's. Heck, I could even see them doing something very similar to Xenoblade 3 where they could bookend the game. I think people may have brought this up in my comment section before, but where they could bookend the DLC for Wave 4 with a scene showing Mio and possibly her family right before the events of Origin take place, essentially mirroring the structure of Xenoblade 3's base game, where we start with a scene before the events of Origin and before the events of Mobius and Ionios, cut to Ionios, then we cut back to life resuming after the events of Ionios and Origin, when the world are now on their way. I think saying most of the game being a prequel is a pretty sound bet. There is an argument to be made that I've also seen in my comment sections before, that they could be trying to subvert our expectations, which Monolith is known for doing, by the way, and actually having most of this DLC be a direct sequel in some capacity. I have seen that going around. I think it's possible. I think it's highly unlikely, though. Like, sure, you could have the Rex and Shulk bit take place either before Ionios or after Ionios. And the way you could do that is, to me, it looks like they're the inside a fog gate of some kind. So you could theoretically have it be that Rex and Shulk both find a fog gate in their world, they both venture in and then meet up, finding Alvis there. That could be it. Again, I don't believe that to be the case. I think that scene is happening in Ionios. But again, same logic that applies to it happening pre-Origin could also happen after Origin, where fog gates open up and they both walk in, meet each other, because the only characters we see in that scene are Rex, Shulk, and Alvis. And we don't actually see any background. They're just inside this swirling maelstrom of energies that looks to me like a fog gate. I think by far the safe bet is to say that happens in Origin, though, within Ionios. But if they pull a bit of tomfoolery, if you catch my drift, I wouldn't be surprised here. Monolith have a track record with usurping one's expectations as you play the game. Xenoblade 1 does this constantly, where you'll think they'll go one way, but then they go the other. And they use that as a foundational storytelling principle behind Xenoblade 1. Xenoblade 2, they set you up for the long haul. For the first half, it's throwing a whole bunch of anime tropes and over-the-top humor at you, one after the other, but then it really gets rid of all of that and tells you a very interesting human and emotional story, where you honestly don't come to expect that from Xenoblade 2 after the first half. And Xenoblade 3 has some aspects to its storytelling like that. Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 are two big sections where they're constantly toying with your expectations, constantly going a little bit further than you expect them to. Hell, an excellent example of this is that one scene during the eclipse where Riku is telling Noah, awaken Lucky 7, you can do it, awaken it, and prevent all this from happening. And then if it was any other anime or shonen manga or whatever, or any other JRPG, Noah would absolutely have awakened his legendary anime sword and saved the day at that moment, but he didn't. That's an excellent example of the type of storytelling that I'm talking about with Xenoblade here. And they could be gunning for something like that in this DLC, just to the nature of how they framed this teaser trailer. And because of that, it makes predicting the actual ending of Wave 4 quite difficult, because we just don't know what to expect. However, Xenoblade does love its poetic sequences. Xenoblade 1 starting off with Harms, Nopon, and Machina and Hyantia largely being separated from one another, ending with them all coinciding peacefully with one another. Xenoblade 2 starts off with Rex by himself on Gramps' back, and ends with the entire crew of Xenoblade 2 and Rex on Gramps' back, showcasing exactly how much he's gained throughout his journey and all that he's learned. Xenoblade 3 could do something poetic as well here, where Xenoblade 3 really focused in on the Kevesi perspective. Think about it. The game starts and ends through Noah's eyes, through that Kevesi perspective. We never saw the world of Ulrest, really, outside of a few scenes with Nia, when she's explaining the concept of Origin. But we never got the Agnes side of things for when Origin activated, like we did with Kevez. The DLC will be an excellent example, or an excellent way to go about providing that perspective. Also, I've heard that in the files, apparently you can find a Kid Mio version. I don't normally like to go off stuff like that. It could just have been cut content, like maybe they intended for it to be in the base game, but then decided not to. Could also be that they were preparing for the DLC. Or they're pulling something like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, where, if I remember correctly, Torn of the Golden Country was originally meant to be a full-blown chapter within the story of Xenoblade 2, but it was eventually cut and fleshed out to be told in that DLC story, Torn of the Golden Country. They could be doing something kind of similar here in principle, where they may not decide to cut it, but just decide, hey, you know what? Instead of just putting these scenes in Xenoblade 3, what if we told this side of the story through the DLC? I could honestly see them doing that. And having Wave 4 end off through essentially the other perspective that we just never saw, it's poetic to me, and it feels like something they would do. Now, I don't think that the prequel elements will be all that shocking in terms of the events transpiring, unless they want to expand on where Vandam goes on his lonely expedition. Like I said, maybe he goes off somewhere at some time, has a 1v1 with Zed, or maybe N again, and then dies. They could do something like that, so I think the climax of it all will be that fight between N and Vandam, where Vandam is able to awaken the true power of Ouroboros to defeat N, and essentially save the city. And I don't know why, but now I just think of that one SpongeBob scene, where they're just in the middle of Bikini Bottom being burned to the ground, and they just go, "We did it, Patrick! We saved the city!" Oh yeah, it's ride time. Yeah, word for word there. I don't know. It's kind of a gut feeling, thinking that they will be trying to be poetic again with the narrative here. Xenoblade 3 kind of felt like we were only told one perspective of the other of two. Like, we were told half the story, we need the other side of things, and the DLC feels like a really good opportunity to do that. So yeah, that's my theory. What's your theory? Leave a comment down below with what you think is going to be the ending of Wave 4. I'd love to know. While you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. We hit 1,000 subscribers on the channel. Thank you, everybody. You all make making these videos so much more fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to hit that bell icon to be notified for when I upload in the future. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can. And I hope to see you all again next time. Bye-bye, everybody.